Hello and welcome to Records Rebuilds. Now that we finished up the C7 Corvette project, it's time to take on something new, or in this case, something old. This is my dad's 1966 Corvette. I guess technically it belongs to me, but I have been working on this project since I was 14 years old. Life has kind of gotten in the way, and it's time to get it across the finish line. So, follow me. So, of course, this car has a story. This car was hit in the Andover tornado in 1991, and it's never made it back on the road since then. My dad bought it in 1972, and it was his daily driver for many, many years. But since 1991, it has been out of commission. I spent most of my teenage years working on this car, and mechanically I got almost everything done. You can see under here everything looks really good. It's all almost brand new, the frame included, you know, no rust on the frame down there. It looks great. But we've never got it across the finish line. So let's take a look at the story behind this car. Let me take you back to April 26, 1991. This is the incredibly famous video shot by Duke Evans as an F5 tornado barreled into Andover, Kansas on that day. At this point, wind speeds are reaching up to 260 miles per hour. This tornado is over 700 yards wide. Almost all of my first vivid memories in life come from this day, and that's because at the very beginning of this video, this tornado is rampaging over my house and burying me alive. We'll show you those pictures in just a second. An incredibly rare occurrence, though. 17 people died in this tornado and 225 were injured. There have only been 66 F5 tornadoes recorded in world history, so an incredibly rare storm. This is my house the morning after the storm. This was a two-story house with a walkout basement, and as you can see, it sucked every wall out of the basement. There is literally nothing left. Since this is a car channel, yes, that is a 67 Chevelle SS in the top right there. It lived at the house next door. That house was vacant, but somebody was using the garage just to store the car, I guess. And it was a casualty. It's a big block car, if I remember correctly. Now, this is where I was. If you look at the arrow here, it's pointing to a sheet of plywood. That was a standard 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of plywood. And my dad used to prop that up in the corner of the basement whenever there was a tornado warning because he was worried about that walkout basement not providing enough protection. I've never heard of anybody else in the world doing that. But on this day, it was exactly the right thing to do. He just laid back in there and he had his hands around the edges of that sheet of plywood and he just held it down as tight as he could. And thankfully, we were in a part of the basement where we were getting buried alive. The other side of the basement, there was an air compressor that got thrown 300 yards away. So just incredibly lucky. I don't know how he thought to do that. I don't know how we survived. If you look up here, you can see these 2x4s that are shoved down in there on top of us through the hole in the top. And then you can see this hole right here. We crawled right out of that hole. Dad boosted me up. I still remember it incredibly vividly. I did a pull-up on that cement there and then crawled right into what used to be the garage, and I could still see the thing as it was going away for us for a long time after that. Just one of the most amazing things I've ever heard of happening to anybody. I remember all the gas lines were blown open and you could smell natural gas everywhere, and I was really worried about that being only 7 years old. And my dad said, it doesn't matter if you can smell it. The only thing that's dangerous is if it builds up in an enclosed space, it can explode, but there's nothing left to enclose it. This is looking right through what used to be the front door of our two-story house. That Volvo there is sitting parked in the middle of a 2-car garage. And the really phenomenal thing is there's not a single 2x4 or board left attached to that concrete foundation. Every single thing completely sucked away in a clean sweep. Funny story about that Volvo there. Mom was at work when this happened, so we still had the Astro van, but a friend brought that Volvo over and dropped it off the first night so that we'd have another car we could use. But we were mainly traveling together as a family at that point, so the Volvo just kind of sat there in the garage, or what used to be the garage, for 2 or 3 days. And this gave rise to a rumor that the car had been parked there in the garage and the tornado took absolutely everything while leaving the Volvo completely undamaged. That would have been an amazing story, but it was completely untrue. That's my Uncle Greg on the right side of the photo. This was 1991, and of course nobody carried cell phones. So when he saw this storm headed our direction and he couldn't get us on the telephone, he just drove out in that direction. About a mile from our house, there were lines down over the road, so he just parked his car and ran the rest of the way. He got there. We actually were helping other people get out of their house, other neighbors across the way, and there was just nothing left. So, of course, he feared the worst initially, and then it turned out we were alive. It was a huge relief, and we all piled into his 300ZX, all 5 of us, and got the heck out of there. This is an automotive channel, and we'll get you back to the reason you're here. This is the last good picture I have of the car before it was destroyed. And this is how it looked the morning after the storm. This is 7-year-old me. I absolutely loved that car. You know, it's only got 2 seats, so when your dad would take you out in it, it was just you and him, kind of a special bonding moment. I see the exact same thing with my kids now when I take them for a ride in the Corvette. But it was just something incredibly special. If you went to order fast food, you had to turn the car off so they could hear you because the exhaust was so loud. And it was just so utterly and totally destroyed. The thing is sandblasted from one end to another. There's not one usable body panel on the entire car, and the front end is just totally ripped off and gone. My dad knew that those headlight motors that rotate the headlights were really rare and expensive even back in 1991. That's like $1,000 for each motor. He spent forever looking for those headlight motors, and he never found a single trace of them. And like, it's just a whole bunch of holes punched in every surface of this car. It's not at all a car that should have been rebuilt. It just had a lot of memories for us. You know, it was never like a concours car. It never had numbers matching engine by this point. But it was something incredibly special to us. It's a car that deserved to live, and I don't know why, but we decided we were going to try to fix it. The car sat abandoned in a barn for the next 7 years until I turned 14, at which time we decided we were going to do a full body-off restoration. A typical summer day back then consisted of me getting home from football practice. Dad would tell me what to do. I'd work all day on it, and then he'd look it over at night, and that's how I learned how to work on cars. That's the reason that this channel exists today. I made pretty good progress over the years, but it slowed down in college mainly because I had to teach myself how to do fiberglass bodywork. And then in 2007, I went away to med school and everything stalled. Basically, no work has happened to the car since then. But that's all about to change because 2023 is the year we finally finish this project. And I'm posting it here on the internet so that all of you can mock me relentlessly if I fail to make that happen. If you're interested in coming along for the ride, be sure and hit the subscribe button down below as well as the bell so that you'll get notifications whenever we drop a new episode, then maybe leave me a comment telling me what you're interested in about the project and what in particular you're wanting to see, and we'll do our best to keep you entertained along the way. If you want to see one of our previous projects, click the button on the right and that'll take you to an 8-minute time lapse of our C7 Stingray rebuild. And if you want to see more detail than that, you can click the button on the left and that'll take you to a playlist of every video in that series. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching.